This lesson will cover a summary of The Dream House by Craig Higginson. From the outset, I would just like to say that there is no single interpretation of the novel. This is simply the way that I understood the novel, the way I interpreted the characters and the events within the novel. So, looking at an introduction from the perspective that I viewed the novel, throughout the novel, the dilapidated farmhouse on Dweleni, which is the farm owned by the Wileys, is a central concern for all of the characters. Patricia is happy to leave the farm behind and everything that it represents, but Richard clings to his demented memories of the house. This is evident in the way that he wanders around the farm, looking for Rachel, digging up graves, and we can see that he clings to the memories that he has of the place. With regard to Becky and Beauty, they are both quiet about their feelings regarding the house. We never fully understand the way that they feel about leaving the house and the farm being demolished. When we look at Looksmart, he is obsessed with the house. We see this as he leaves it as a young boy and comes back as a grown man with an obsession with the house and the Wileys. He comes back for a reason. And for him, the house is a symbol of what he desired as a young boy. As a young boy, he always looked at Patricia and Richard in the house, and he would live in what he called his mud hut. And he always desired to live in a house such as the farmhouse on Dweleni. And finally, the house became a symbol of his triumph and revenge as an adult man, as he comes back as the developer to develop the farm in his own way. The house acts as the physical embodiment of the characters' main concerns, their dreams, their memories, and interpretations of the past. Characters throughout the novel are symbols of the different classes of people in the post-apartheid South Africa. We have a racist resentful old white man who is represented by Richard. We see this in his racist tendencies, the way that he treats the black characters within the novel, and the way that he thinks and acts throughout the novel. We have colonialist and paternalistic old white woman who feels the burden of educating and uplifting black people. She helps Beauty save money and educates Looksmart. Those are two ways in which we see that she feels the burden of the effects of apartheid. However, we do not feel that she is fully invested in helping them. And this is represented by Patricia. Then you have a female black worker who is aware of her powerlessness and inadequacy. This is represented by Beauty. We see this in her subservient position as the helper on the farm and the way in which she looks up to Patricia. And there's a very nice line in the novel where one of the characters says that Patricia calls Beauty as if she is a dog. And that is indicative of the way in which Patricia views Beauty and Beauty's subservient role in the novel, highlighting her awareness that she has powerlessness and her inadequacy. Then we have a male black worker who is equally aware of his powerlessness, but keeps his silence looking for a way out, and that is Becky. We see throughout the novel that he is aware of his powerlessness, but he never acts on it, and he's never an outspoken character. And then lastly, we have a black, newly affluent, working class man who is still not comfortable with his own power. And this is represented by Looksmart. We see this in the way that he comes back to the farm dressed in a suit, driving a upmarket car, and we can see that he is still not fully comfortable with his new status as a powerful man in a South African context. When we look at the 5 different parts of the novel, part 1, we have the exposition, which is the introduction of the characters as well as the house. Part 2, we have the rising action. We have Looksmart's arrival causes tension. The subject of past events which have led up to the rising action are referred to. These are the events which are discussed between Patricia and Looksmart, and we look back on the past and how that has affected the present. Then we have the climax of the novel, which is Grace's murder or death when the dogs are set on her and Patricia refuses to put her in her car for fear of damaging her leather seats. Next, we have the falling action, which is revisiting the past, explaining and trying to understand the past events. And last, we have the resolution, which is the death and departure, making space for Looksmart's new beginning. Next, we move on to part 1 of the novel. So the novel begins with an introduction to the farmhouse and the mist. It opens describing the Bloodwood Groves and the mist that has come over the farm. And we are told that the farm has been sold and will be destroyed. We realize that there's a giving up of personal history and ownership and desire to begin with a new slate. Now, the giving up of history and ownership is on the part of the Wileys. They have sold the farm and they are giving up the memories and everything that goes with the ownership of the farm. Whereas a desire to begin with a new slate is in terms of both the Wileys and Looksmart. Looksmart aims to come and redevelop the farm in a way that he deems more respectable in a post-apartheid South Africa, and the Wileys will have come to the realization that it is no longer okay for them to own this farm, which is representative of the pre-apartheid times. So they have decided to sell the farm and will move to their house in Durban, where they will retire. Patricia does not feel connected to her reality. It seems that everything which gave her life meaning is gone. We look at Looksmart. Looksmart as a child she thought she saw him as her own child. She put a lot of time and effort into Looksmart, and he has now turned on her, and she feels as if she has lost him. She has lost John, who has, at this point, they are moving to Durban, and she will no longer be able to contact him or see him. She has lost the dogs who have been shot, and they were a part of her life that she looks back on and misses and gave her life meaning. And she has lost the ponies, which she says were a failure as Richard could not run the farm, and now the animals, after she had taken over, the animals are now gone with the farm being sold. Patricia's relationship with beauty is given a dehumanizing quality. As we've said, she is described to call beauty like she calls the dogs. This highlights beauty's subservient position with regards to Patricia, and once again highlights the dominant position of the white characters in the novel as opposed to the black characters, which we once again link back to apartheid in South Africa and the racial relations that have arisen as a result of apartheid. And the novel begins to allow us to view that in a way in which we're able to understand the inner workings of the characters. So we then see Patricia feels the burden or generosity of having to uplift beauty. As a white character, we are open up to the idea that white characters in the novel post-apartheid feel guilty for the burdens of apartheid on black people, which is completely understandable in a historical viewpoint of apartheid, and the novel then highlights this for us. Patricia aims to send Beauty for driving and English lessons so that she will one day be able to get a better job. Patricia is deeply connected with the house. She is proudful and embarrassed by her weakness. We see her connection to the house in her inability to move on and move to Durban, while her pridefulness and her embarrassment is highlighted in her inability to come to terms with her age and the fact that she is frail and weak, and the fact that she does not want people to see her in her wheelchair. Richard is then introduced as a speaking character with dementia. He is viewed as a character who is not able to control his actions due to his illness, being dementia. He digs up Rachel's grave in an attempt to find his long-lost daughter and dig up the past and memories that he has of his daughter. The killing of the dogs is symbolic of the end of an era, apartheid and white supremacy. The dogs, which may be viewed as a symbol of security and protection, are killed, and I like to interpret the dogs as a representation of apartheid. Apartheid was something which was put in place to give white people security and dominance, and the dogs which protect the farm are an indication that, or a symbol of the security and dominance that they give to the white characters on the farm. With the killing of the dogs, it is symbolic of the end of the apartheid era and the fact that we are now moving into a post-apartheid South Africa. Becky and Beauty have taken care of Patricia as she is no longer independent. We know that she is frail, she is getting old, and they refer to Patricia and Richard as Mrs., Madam, and Ubas, which are titles of authority and racial superiority. So from this once again just highlights our racial positions between our white characters and our black characters. Patricia and Richard are put up on a pedestal. Becky and Beauty are made to be subservient, as they refer to them in very dominant terms, where we look at the white characters as having power over Becky and Beauty. It is also very important to note that Richard is referred to as Ubas, which is not an English word and is therefore an indication that black authority is starting to come through in the novel, an indication that in post-apartheid South Africa, they are not accepting the white superiority fully anymore, and we are starting to see a rebelling against the white normality. Patricia is represented as efficient and in charge. She runs the farm and scolds Becky. Once again, highlighting our white characters versus our black character and showing the power situation. Richard is represented as pathetic and ineffectual. We see that in the way that he cannot even tie his own shoelaces or bath himself, and the way in which he could not run the farm, and it became a failure when he was put in charge. Patricia's marriage with Richard was a mismatch. Her father did not like him. Patricia says that her father did not like Richard. She is of a higher class than Richard. She is not only more intelligent, but of a higher class standing than Richard. And she only got married because she was pregnant with Richard's child. And we are told that her father only accepted the marriage because she was pregnant. Beauty is scared of her boss. This is another indication of our race relations. Richard has power over Beauty, and Beauty knows this. Although Richard is weak, so we are shown that even in the case where Richard is weak, Beauty is aware that he still holds power over her. So despite his weakness in physical power, due to his race as being a white man and Beauty a black woman, he is still the one that holds power over her. In this instance, we are also made aware of gender relations. As a man, he still holds power over a woman, and on top of that, he is white and she is black, and in a post-apartheid South Africa, this is evident that he will hold power over her. Then we notice that Patricia has had an affair with John Ford for over 30 years. Her intimacy with John is contrasted with the lack of sexual interaction with Richard. We are given an indication that she has never found love in Richard, and she has never found intimacy in Richard, and she has searched elsewhere for that intimacy and love, which she has found in John Ford, who is someone that gives her life meaning, and someone she loses when she plans to move to Durban. John's late wife, Anna, is treated as a saint. So John Ford had a wife who he lost to cancer, and in John's relationship with Patricia, his late wife is treated as a saint, while Richard is always available for mockery. So Richard is a character which they use to mock and make fun of, and he is positioned in stark contrast to Anna, who is treated as a saint and never made available for mockery. Richard and John are contrasted. John is presented as a strong character. There's a quote in the book which says he is everything Richard was not, which is why Patricia loves him and shares intimacy with him. Now that is very important, as this is an indication that Patricia struggles to love Richard. There's nothing in Richard that she sees as being a source of love. And Patricia tends to ignore the past. We have a quote in the book which says, "Backward glances only crick the neck," indicating that Patricia views the past as invaluable. She says that looking back at the past is simply going to cause pain and there is no point in it. John points out that she has an inability to unpack boxes, which are symbolic of the past. We can view the boxes as memories and events in the past, and she has an inability to unpack them and go through what has happened in the past. Her inability to deal with the past costs her in the novel. This is evident in her relationship with Looksmart, and she loses her long lost son as a result of this. John hands Patricia a letter which she must open when she arrives in Durban. As Patricia leaves John's house for the last time, he hands her a letter which we get a sense that it is very important, but she is told to only open it when she gets to Durban. Patricia's paternalism, she carries a burden that she must help black people. We've seen this in the way that she wants to help Beauty and Looksmart. Despite her good intentions, she is racist. Now, this is not outright said in the novel. This is the feeling that I got throughout the novel. I viewed her as a racist character. She helps Beauty save money and get English and driving lessons, yet she treats her like a maid. Now, this is simply an indication that she views herself as being a good person for helping Beauty. However, her racist tendencies come out in the way that she treats Beauty. And that is an indication that, for me, she is a racist character. Then we look at how she gives Looksmart an education. However, she's ignorant of his feelings and his resentment. Patricia simply places Looksmart in what we view as a white school. Looksmart is uncomfortable. He does not feel included. He feels as though he is sent to school, there's a quote which says, "You put me in that blazer, sent me to that school," indicating his resentment, and he does not feel the same way that Patricia feels by sending him to the school. And this indicates that she feels that she is doing good, but she is unaware of the impact that it is having on Looksmart. Now, Rachel was Richard and Patricia's stillborn child. We are introduced to her, but we're not given much information about her. This is the stillborn child that was buried on the farm, and Richard, in his demented state, goes around the farm digging up graves trying to find her. The house has decayed with rot, mold, and wet, as well as the farm. The animals have gone astray and are lost. We are shown a farm which is in disarray. It has become nothing more than a mess, and this is indicative of the way in which the white characters are losing power in a post-apartheid South Africa. And as a reader, we are forced to understand that white supremacy has to come to an end and there has to be a change of power. Patricia has an inability to deal with the past and shared emotional baggage, as we've said before. Then Looksmart arrives at the farm. He tells himself he would be coming here out of hate. Now, the first question is, why would he be coming here out of hate? We look at Patricia having given him an education. He had a place to live. He was often allowed into the farmhouse to interact with Patricia. And we ask ourselves, why would he be coming here out of hate? And this becomes very clear to us in the following chapters of the book. So Looksmart is now the development manager of the farm. He has a view and an idea for where the farm should go, and he is going to put that into action in the development. His inability to accept his personal power. There's a quote where he says he feels like an intruder in his own land. This shows that despite post-apartheid, apartheid is now over, he is still unable to accept the fact that he has been given power. He now has political power, and he struggles to understand that and come to terms with it. He feels like an intruder in his own land. Looksmart is disturbed by the disorder of the farm. It has become a mess. From what he remembers of the farm, it has all changed, and he is disturbed by the change. Looksmart's car and suit, which he arrives at the farm in, are a symbol of his wealth and his luxury, which he cannot acknowledge in himself. Thus, he projects it outwards in material goods. Now, newly affluent characters such as Looksmart project their power and their wealth outwards in material goods such as his car and his suit. That is an indication, once again, or a symbol, as I interpreted it, that he is unable to understand his wealth and come to terms with it on the inside, emotionally, so he projects it outwardly. Then we are introduced to Grace as a character. It seems to be Grace who is the driving factor that has caused Looksmart's hatred and anger, but we are not introduced to much more than that. We are only introduced to this in the following chapters, and we are also introduced to the fact that Looksmart has a family, 2 young children, and a wife, which shows that he has moved on from the Wileys and his life on the farm, and he has made his own family and a life of his own. Looking at part 2 of the novel, Richard is a demented dreamer who sees evil and destruction everywhere. He is wandering around the farm in search of Rachel. As we've said, he's digging up a number of graves, he's digging holes, he's digging in porcupine holes, in every description of what he sees, it's very apocalyptic, it's very destructive. He does not see the good in anything on the farm. Looksmart begins to realize that his memories are bigger than the reality. He has a desire to own the past. He wants to look back on the past. He wants a sense of knowing that he has been fulfilled by a discussion on events of the past, and he desires to own the past. He wants to feel as though he has the upper hand in discussions and events with regards to the past and memories. Looksmart sarcastically addresses Patricia as Madam. It's simply a play on the power situation. For all his life, he was subservient to Patricia. However, now in a post-apartheid South Africa, as a black man, he has significant power over Patricia. Secondly, he is the developer and will develop the Wiley's farm as he wants to, so he has power over Patricia, and by addressing her as Madam, he plays on the fact that she feels as though she has the power, but he actually, in reality, has all the power. Looksmart describes the decay of both the farm and the Wileys. Patricia was very fond of Looksmart as a young boy. We see this in the way that she treated him as her own son. Now she is unable to express her love for him. She says that he has changed. He has come back as an angry man. She cannot see the young boy that she used to see. The different perspectives on the conversation are shown in each chapter and from different perspectives there. Only the words spoken aloud have shared an understandable meaning. Now that is a quote from the book, which highlights the need for open communication that does not exist in the novel. So, only words spoken aloud have shared an understandable meaning. Now, we know that words have not been shared aloud and they have not been understood by the characters, so we are able to interpret that at this point in the novel there is no understandable meaning, there has been no reconciliation or understanding of past events. The meeting between the two is very tense. We sense that Looksmart is very angry. He wants to do something. We get a very angry and dangerous sense of the meeting, and we constantly wonder whether Looksmart will lash out at Patricia. Patricia makes reference to his suit. She is surprised by his success, which speaks to her racist nature. Looksmart takes huge offense at her comment. So Patricia makes a comment about how Looksmart arrives at the farm in a suit, saying that she did not recognize him in a suit. And this is once again an indication of Patricia's racist nature. She never expected a black man to arrive at the farm in a suit. And obviously Looksmart takes huge offense to that due to the fact that it is racist in nature. Looksmart struggles to accept his present as a strong, independent, successful man, and constantly feels powerless to whites. That is shown in his inability to accept his current position, his wealth, and the political power that has been bestowed on him. Looksmart has a constant sense of trying to impress and be someone he is not. We saw this in his childhood. He constantly tried to impress Patricia. There's a quote in the book where Looksmart says that he constantly felt as if he was a toy monkey with a battery up its arse. And that simply speaks to the fact that he felt as though he was a toy for Patricia to play with. He felt as if he was controlled like a remote control toy by Patricia, and everything he did for Patricia. He has a strong hatred for Richard. He comes to the farm and he says he is cheered by the prospect of Richard's death, indicating his pure hatred for the man. Now, we may link this at this point back to, we know that Looksmart says he is coming out of hatred. He says that Grace plays a large role in that hatred, and now he has a deep hatred for Richard. So by connecting the dots, we may assume that Richard has something to do with Grace, and this has caused his hatred. He speaks of the memory of the fishing experience, and this sparks disagreement between Patricia and Looksmart. They have very different views of the memory of when she took him fishing for the first time, and this speaks to the fact that Patricia and Looksmart view the past in extremely different ways. And due to the fact that they've never spoken about it, there's never been a discussion, they do not understand each other's different view. Beauty is a character who has control over her emotions and her thoughts. She is not one who lashes out. She is not one who becomes politically involved, but she is a silent watcher who understands what is going on, but she does not like the confrontation. Richard is a broken human being. His infidelity and attraction to young women, being the stable girls, as well as what we will learn later in the novel, his infidelity leads to him being a broken man that Patricia cannot love and cannot see in the same light. Looksmart is not comfortable in his own skin. He tries to play the part that he is not. He wants revenge but does not know how. In his meeting with Patricia, he forms a sense of anger and hatred, which we understand to be almost forced on his part, and he feels very uncomfortable in doing this. The houses which are being built by the developers, and Looksmart being head developer, are identical to the old farmhouse, which we may find very strange. He has a hatred for the Wileys. We wonder why he would want to rebuild houses that are exactly what the Wileys lived in. However, this is Looksmart's attempt to reclaim the past and improve on it. So he wants to take the exact past and improve on that and make it into what he wants it to be. Looksmart's departure had left confusion in Patricia's life. She never understood why he left and never contacted her. And this meeting, we hope, will bring an answer to that. Sometimes a crick in the neck is exactly what the doctor orders. Now, that is a quote from the book. Looksmart asks Patricia to examine the past and bring healing. Patricia says that looking back at the past will only injure you and hurt you, but Looksmart says that sometimes that hurt is exactly what a doctor orders. Sometimes you need that hurt to understand the past and to move on and heal. The half-built houses look like they are out of a war zone. Ironically, they are in the process of being built. That is simply just an indication of the destruction that is occurring on the farm and how that will lead to rebirth and a new life for the people on the farm. Beauty acknowledges the anger the farm workers have towards Patricia. The farm workers sit in their houses on the farm, and there's a quote that says, "It looks as if Umusis has just been set on fire," as they look at a bonfire or a fireplace in their houses. She also recognizes the powerlessness of the workers. So she understands that the workers have a hatred for Patricia, indicated by the fact that they see her as being on fire. And she also recognizes that despite the hatred, they have no power to act or do anything about it. Beauty and Becky tolerate and fear Richard for the protection of their jobs. There's a quote that says, "The decision is never made for Ubas's sake, but for the sake of another thing, the expectation of Umusis." So they look after Richard and they care for him and they fulfill their jobs, but purely for the expectation that Umusis places on them, not for the care or the understanding of Richard. Beauty frantically tries to keep Richard away from Patricia and Looksmart. She knows this is another indication that Beauty does not like confrontation. She knows that if Richard were to walk in on Patricia and Looksmart, there would probably be a fight and a physical confrontation. Looksmart represents the angry black middle class, which are frustrated with white people. Perfectly understandable in the context of apartheid. This is historically something that occurred in South Africa. There was an angry black middle class that resented and were angered by the events of apartheid, and Looksmart represents that group of people. As a young boy, all he wanted to do was impress Patricia. He has that quote where it says, "Toy monkey with the battery up its ass." He felt as though he was controlled by Patricia and simply there for Patricia to enjoy and for him to impress. Looksmart says Patricia lived with her head deep in the earth, unaware of her surroundings. So this is an indication that Patricia was she chose to ignore what was going on in South Africa, and she chose to ignore the effects of her actions and her husband's actions. Looksmart says, "You have always been afraid of the truth," which is indicative of Patricia's inability to look back on the past and to understand and get to the bottom of the truth and understanding. Patricia is a racist, yet she loves Looksmart. Looksmart is angry at the way he is treated, but still craves Patricia's approval. Now, this just simply goes back to even in his anger and coming back to the farm to get a sense of relief and understanding, he still has a sense of the good old days and Patricia's love for him and wanting to impress her. Looksmart introduces the murder of Grace. We know that Grace was a sense of his anger, and he introduces the murder of Grace, which is seen in a very different light to the way that Patricia sees it. Patricia saw it as the death, as the dog attacked her. She never saw it as a murder, and Patricia refuses to call it murder and rather calls it death, as she denies anything was wrong or her fault. This is another indication that she never wants to uncover the truth. She has an inability to understand or listen to Looksmart's point of view, and the difference between Patricia's view of Grace's death and Looksmart's view of Grace's murder becomes a significant point of conflict within the novel, and this will be explored further in the following chapters.